following. So look for, number one, quality. Number two, quality. Number three, quality. Number four, quality. You get the gist. I call it the 8Q rule. So these are relating to 8 quality criteria that we feel collectors should keep in mind. We start with the brand and model. Is it a respected model? Is the respected brand? Is the watch an iconic model? The design, how important it is. Is it original, derived? Is it a timeless design, or is it a fashion trend? Exclusivity, is it rare? Is it common? And what's the ratio of the quantity of demand versus supply? Movement, what's inside matters. Condition is everything in watch collecting. Just like in real estate, it's location, location, location. In watch collecting, it's condition, condition, condition. Originality. Originality affects value. Making sure all parts are original to the watch. That's quite important. Provenance. Who was the former owner? Does the watch tell a story? That impacts value for sure. And then when it comes time to sell your watch, what's the target market? Is it super niche where you'll have trouble finding a buyer? Or does it have broad global appeal where you'll have no trouble selling the watch when it comes time to part with it? So we start with brand and model. So across industries, there are many brands that produce forgettable, uninspired products, and very few brands that push the state of the art in terms of engineering, in terms of design, where they produce products of lasting importance. Porsche with the 911, Hermes with the Kelly bag and the Birkin bag. These are products with enduring appeal that on the secondary market, they command a premium compared to uninspired products. The same thing goes with the world of watches. There are hundreds, maybe even thousands of brands producing watches. It's up to us as collectors to discern which brands are producing things in their own manner, paving their own way, producing original designs, inspired designs, with a focus on quality. Audemars Piguet, for example, with the Royal Oak that you see, introduced in 1972, and many followed subsequent to that, the world's first luxury steel sports watch. Omega with the Speedmaster, introduced in 1957, produced to the present day. And Patek Philippe with a focus on understated luxury to the present day, followed by many and enjoyed by many. Now, every rule has its exception. Every brand has a bad day. Porsche with a 944 isn't such an icon. The Rolex Cellini model, like this with an integrated bracelet. It's nice, but does it have broad appeal? Not so much. And this watch that many people have forgotten for good reason, an amalgamation of an ellipse with a nautilus that, no. So, design, the next Q criteria. Originality versus derived. So the original enjoys lasting success, status, and stature. Derived concepts are inspired by the original, but don't receive the same amount of respect. Richard Mille, at the turn of the century, pushed the state of the art of watch design, and today enjoys tremendous interest in the collector community and does quite well in the pre-owned market. The derivative brands like Sistos, nice watch, good quality, but does it enjoy the same status and stature? Not so much. A bit more on design this makes me laugh, this chart. So fashion trends, watches that look different today, be wary of how they'll look in the future. A timeless design introduced today may not get the buzz and the splash, but 20, 30 years from now, it'll be relevant and people will enjoy it. Just like the way people dressed in this royal family pretty picture in the 1980s, today it still looks modern. The mullet family, not so much. Exclusivity. So now more than ever, people want what they can't easily get. And with watch collectors, they especially want watches that other watch collectors can't get. So the rarer, more exclusive, the more enduring value it has. Hermes with the Birkin bag, very difficult to obtain. The more unobtainable it is, the more demand goes up and the more people want to buy it. Common products, like the Michael Kors purse, not so much. I know there's a couple of long collectors in the audience. What I show there is the Pour le Mérite Tourbillon, introduced in 1994. One of 200 examples. This one was one of 50 examples in platinum. Extremely rare, extremely sought after. It trades for multiples of its original retail price. A Gevrol watch, you'd be hard pressed to be able to sell it for $10, $15, even though its retail was probably $300. A rare Rolex here in 8171, extremely rare, produced for just 3 years in the early 1950s. It's an 8171. Best condition examples can trade for upwards of $1 million. And you have a common Rolex, the Datejust, very well made, a good watch, worn by many, but does it trade for such a premium? Not so much. What's inside matters, and whether it's a simple watch or a complicated watch, more parts, more complexity, more desirability in general. Now, here we see a Patek Philippe 5004, Vacheron Constantin's latest release, which was my favorite introduction in SIHH this year, and then movement finishing. So the quality of the finishing inside a movement, when you look at a watch, the visible parts that you see without getting into the inside, you see maybe 10 components all together. The dial, the hands, the case, the crystal, the strap. It's very easy to make those 10 parts look really good. The brands that do things exceptionally well, they finish the parts that are inside, and there are hundreds of parts, each lavished with amazing attention to detail at the highest levels. For me, a mechanical watch can approach perfection like no other object in terms of human craftsmanship. And the very finest watches, collectors are looking for that, where you have these hundreds of parts, every surface treated beautifully, finished immaculately, and these are the watches that people will always want. These factors, condition, originality, and provenance. Condition is everything. Here's a Rolex Submariner that went through some hard times. You can find a watch on the pre-owned market. You can find it in pretty beat up condition and get it at a good price. Or you can find a mint condition example, complete with its boxes and papers, pay what you think is a premium. 15 years from now, you'll be thankful you paid the premium because you'll find that so many more people want that well-preserved watch and will pay a significant premium as opposed to a mediocre, average condition watch. Modifications. So there are a lot of aftermarket companies that modify certain watches. They're fun, they're cool, but will you be able to sell them in the future for what you paid at least? May have difficulty. Originality matters, especially in the world of fine collectors' watches. And then provenance. Here we have a Bulgari Serpenti watch. In this case, it was formerly owned by Liz Taylor. The Serpenti watch, this one sold in 2011 for $960,000. It was estimated at auction for $15,000 to $25,000. In this day and age, provenance matters. Who previously owned the watch? Was it a good character? Was it a bad character? If it was a bad character, it turns off certain buyers. If it was a good person, the market is bigger. Target market. So when it comes time to sell, not all of us have unlimited budgets where we can keep our watches permanently. So when it comes time to sell, consider the appeal. A Porsche 911 in silver, easy to sell. A Viper green Lamborghini, the market's a bit smaller. Amazing car, but you know, the market is small. Just like a Cartier Tank Americain standard versus the version introduced in 1997 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of India's freedom. It's a great watch, very similar model, but the market for it is quite small. So let's go through an example, going through the 8Q rule. Here we have a Rolex Daytona from 1968, a reference 6239, fitted with what Rolex calls an exotic dial. So if we go through the 8 criteria, brand and model. Rolex, is it a respected maker? Rolex is respected. The Daytona is one of the world's most sought after models, whether vintage or modern, so I would consider it an iconic model. The design, the Daytona today, the vintage ones, people love to wear them, whether it's male or female. They fit broad, a range of wrists across the globe. So absolutely, it's timeless, and I don't think it's a fashion trend. The ratio between supply and demand. Paul Newman Daytonas are not especially rare. They're relatively rare in the world of Rolex. The difference is the ratio of supply and demand. There are far more people who want a Paul Newman Daytona versus those who, versus the amount that are on the market. The movement, it's a chronograph, so it's relatively complicated. The condition of that particular one I showed you was all original and had never been polished. That's an important thing to consider these days, as collectors more and more realize that an unpolished watch, a watch that has never been refinished to remove its scratches, is actually the rarest to find. Because in the normal course of a watch's life, people took the watch back for service, treating it with care. And most manufacturers, most watchmakers wanted to return the watch, making it look like new. So few watches have survived having never been touched. When a watch is not polished, it has all the original edges, curves, and contours that came out of the factory that can never be returned. Once you remove metal, it's gone forever. So that particular example was completely unpolished, which was fantastic. In that watch, all parts were original. The provenance of this one, you'll see on the next slide, was noteworthy. The target market. The provenance had a broad appeal, and the watch has a broad appeal. And that particular watch was owned by Paul Newman, worn by Paul Newman until 1984, after he received it from his wife in 1968. And it broke a record for the world's most expensive wristwatch ever sold at auction. We were proud to sell it in October 2017 for $17.8 million. So the last topic of my pitch, why buy at auction? Well, people who collect and have spent a long time collecting their watches, they realize when they have great pieces that they can benefit from a worldwide audience competing for that watch. So they could sell it privately, but they realize that they don't have the marketing capacity to get the watch in front of the right people. So we search the world, and auction houses search the world for the finest watches, and clients know that. So when we get these watches, we get watches at all price levels, and the clients who are interested in buying, it makes sense to buy at auction. Why? Because when you buy from a seller, when you buy from a dealer directly, the dealer is trying to get the highest price out of you as possible. When you're buying at auction, you're bidding against other buyers who are trying to get the watch as inexpensively as possible. And the person with the highest bid wins, but you're paying fair market price. At the same time, when a watch appears at auction, you're seeing, once the auction catalog is printed, you're seeing a collection of watches that was curated and sourced and vetted by an international team of specialists. At the same time, at the day of the auction, the watch appearing up on the screen, it has survived the scrutiny of the international community. Auctions are public. Every watch we post, every watch we sell, it's going to be scrutinized. And any auction house that is reputable will stand behind the watches they offer. And if there is an issue, we pull the watch before the date of the auction. So you could rest assured that when you buy at auction, it's been vetted. So with that, I thank you for your attention and welcome any questions. Yes, sir. Oh, great. Thank you, sir.
Congrats on that. I have a couple questions. One, as far as patina is concerned, I understand how UV light can affect a dial and turn it tropic. A lot of the patinas we're
manipulation.
exposure, or maybe even manipulation as well. Can you talk a little bit about your rules of thumb on where something becomes permanently desirable because there's patina, or where something is at risk and degrading because there's patina? And then I have a follow-up question on what's your rule of thumb on dealer participation as both sellers and buyers in your auction?
With pleasure. Great questions. The concept of tropical, for those that don't know, is when a dial turns a different color than it was originally born with. And it could have been due to a defect in paint, exposure to sunlight, or other reasons that are not so honest. And for me personally as a collector, and me as an auction specialist, I have two hats. It all depends on the watch first and foremost if I like it aesthetically. And at auction, if I think my clients will like it aesthetically. So first thing is, how does it look? If it's so far gone and the tropical nature looks to be damaged from water, or if it's so doesn't have any more life, it's a watch I'd reject. Then, if I like it, next step is to determine if it's true tropical patina or if it's done, in a manipulative way. So what we do is we take out the dial and we inspect for signs of manipulation. And there's ways you can tell when you remove the dial. There will be areas that if it's always been exposed and the parts of the dial that are covered by the flange part of the case are correct, you know what? That's a good sign. Is a serial number range where you've seen other tropical watches, does that match? So there's a series of steps we take, but it really comes down to you. Do you like the watch? And that's how I view it. If I like the watch, that's the first step, and then it's assess its legitimacy. And your follow-up question about dealers participating at auction. And I'll extend that to watchmaking brands, if I may, participating at auction. So auction is open to the public, and by law, everyone is welcome, and we have to allow them to bid if it's, they're a legitimate bidder. What the intelligent dealers, vintage dealers in the watch community do, is they come to the auction previews. They follow us. They do their homework. They find the watches that are good, that they know their clients will like, and they're looking for a bargain. So they're participating in order to get stock for themselves because why? They know that those watches are good. They've been vetted, and there's no issues. And the watch has got a public record. When it comes time to sell, especially if it's been at a Philips auction, it has a little bit of prestige. This was a Philips watch. It's good to go. Brands, of course, are welcome to participate. And there's some criticism, perhaps, that brands are manipulating by participating at auction. And I completely disagree with that statement. When a brand is legitimately bidding at auction in a legitimate manner, which they do, there's nothing wrong with them investing in their heritage because they believe in their future. It's just like a publicly traded company buying back stock. They believe in their future. They buy back stock because they're investing in themselves. And that's how I view brands participating at auction. Yes, sir.
So we've all heard about the Newman and now the Elizabeth Taylor. So what is your experience with the individual who his mother comes to another and says, look, here's a watch. I don't know what it was. My husband had it, your grandfather had it. It's a Patek with Acheron and looks in pretty good shape. Do they come to you? I mean, how do you get those people out where they're then able to vet those watches? Single owner maybe was given in years ago. What is your experience with that?
So what we love, and what I personally love, is spreading the word of the greatness of watches to as many people as possible. Strong auction results get headlines. Headlines get eyeballs, and eyeballs get motivated to open their drawers to say, oh wow, I have a watch that looks like that. And we'll get calls from grandma, from grandpa. I have a watch that looks just like that. Can you tell me more? It's my favorite phone call. I love it. And we are an auction house, so we tell them your best bet is to put it at auction because you'll get a fair market price. Put it at auction, We vet the watch, of course, and we listen to the stories. We try to get any pictures of them wearing the watch, any historical information of how they owned it, what they did wearing it. But for anyone with such an old timepiece, their fairest way to get paid is through auction. There are unscrupulous people, whether they're collectors or dealers, that would take advantage of such a situation. But at auction, it's open to the public, and we would do our best to market it properly, and they would get a fair market price. He was.
Well, I noticed that some auction houses, when they have a lot unsold, making it possible for buyers to buy that watch at, I'm assuming at what the reserve was, or some other price. What's Phillips' position on?
Yeah, so it's typically any auction house. We offer watches. Some lots do go unsold. The savvy buyer who missed the opportunity at auction will immediately contact the auction house and ask if the watch is still available. If yes, submit an offer, because there's other offers coming in. So submit an offer, and you may have a shot at getting it. And you have a certain window of when you can do that. And then the window closes, and then we either have to relist the watch or return the watch to the seller. So take advantage. Sometimes a deal can happen. So you can submit any offer. Any offer is a good offer. Whether it wins or not depends on the offer. Oh, Paul, you were the next.
So two questions. One, what percentage do you accept towards this purchase? And then maybe if I make it easy. The second one is, given how fluid it is with respect to bidding online, it makes it so easy for you to do these online bidding. How for someone who can't go to a preview, who can't go to every single vendor, how does that person try to assess if they're spending that competitive? Or how does that person figure out what is the position? How should I pursue? What can I get from you in addition that help me make a decision that I probably should have done?
Great questions, Paul, and I thank you for asking them. So we at Phillips, we reject 70 to 80% of the watches proposed to us. We are very stringent in the quality level we accept. My objective in the auctions that I curate, I want anytime you turn to a random page, you put your finger on that page, it's a good watch. Next page, it's a good watch, whatever the price point is. So unfortunately, we do upset some people. You know, you call someone's baby ugly, which we don't do, but they get a little bit upset sometimes. But that's what we stand for. We stand for exceptional quality. And then to your second question, remind me, Paul.
Online bidding.
Ah.
How does someone who can't go to previews, how do you approach assessing?
Yeah, so for the savvy collector, for the dealer, auctions, you know, like I said, bring about great watches that you might have been searching for. If you can't make a preview, find the contact info for the specialist. It's on the website. Speak to them. They will be very frank with you. They'll provide you condition reports. They'll provide you extra pictures. They'll provide you videos. They'll FaceTime you if you like. We want to give you all the tools you need to make an informed decision, and that's what we're here for. We serve the community. We serve and help brands. We help collectors. We help dealers. That's the role of us in the community. The auction house is your friend, and we're here to help. This gentleman.
I want to get a little better idea of what your bidding process is.
So when it comes to modern versus vintage, modern is not so difficult because a Patek 5004, you turn the back, you know that the watch is correct when you look at the movement. You can't really fake that. You look at the papers if they're correct. The font of the printing, sometimes they fake papers. So with a little bit of experience, we look at all of the things that come with the modern watch. Vintage, it's different. Vintage, it's a lot easier to vet the watch when it comes from the original owner. If a watch has been around the block and it's coming from a person that you know, doesn't have always the best watches, then you have to really look into it. So, look at the serial number. What's the date of production? Okay, the date of production of a Daytona reference 6263 is 1975. No, let's make it clear, 1977. There's a Paul Newman dial, an exotic dial, fitted on that watch. We know that the Paul Newman dials were only sold on watches beginning in 1966 through about 1972, 73. So the presence of that dial, incorrect, the watch is out. So we do a lot of that research. We contact manufacturers. So Vacheron Constantin, for example, they have a great archive service. We send them the movement number, we send them the case number for every single Vacheron we take, for every single Patek we take, and we see what they say about the watch. It was sold in 1941 and sold with a pink gold case with a silver dial and Arabic numerals. That's the configuration of the watch. Terrific. Craig.
So I'm going to ask a similar question of some of the other panels, because I'm just curious about it. So you've been a collector for many years, and you've been observing auctions and participating in the industry for many years. What trends, if any, have you noticed when it comes to people, say, under the age of 40, as far as their interest in auctions and what particular sorts of things they're interested in? Because I'm curious how the younger market is kind of evolving and developing just from what you see.
It's a great question. Thanks to, I guess, social media and the growth of Instagram and the online community, more and more people below the age of 40 are coming into the world of collectors' watches, which is great. And their participation at auction has also increased in the past 5 years, without any doubt. What's most desirable these days are actually those watches that appeal to the lifestyle of that age group. It's sports watches, it's chronographs, it's steel. That's sort of what's most sought after. Not to say that there's not still huge and significant demand for complicated dress watches like Patek Philippe's, perpetual calendars, Vacheron Constantin triple dates, but the quantity of people interested in sport watches has no doubt increased. And the transactional behavior of that age group, they want online participation. So 10 years ago, people would participate over the phone. Today, you've got to be online. You've got to enable and facilitate online bidding, make it a smooth process, because that's how people really want to transact today. Sir.
I can tell you about that. Definitely social media. So my question to you was, you've been in so many auctions, you've seen so many watches that when they were first released, they were terrible. Such as the modern day Milkus, which came out, was rejected, and now it's kind of paying up in price. What are some of the patterns, if any at all, that you have seen with watches that when they first come out, they're considered to be failures, yet later on become very sought after pieces that if you had just had a crystal ball at the time and realized this watch is going to triple in price, I could just pick it up now and then later on sell it for a profit. It may be impossible, right?
Yeah, there's no crystal ball, but you know, the AP Royal Oak that I showed a picture of, as anyone who's into watches in this audience knows, when it first came out in '72, it comes out at the Basel World Show, and the competitors walk past the booth, they see that watch, they see the price. It's the most expensive stainless steel watch ever offered. And they say, their direct competitors, this brand's going to go bankrupt in a year. And it was released in the heart of the quartz crisis. It was really audacious, and they struggled for the first year to sell them. Then good fortune was in their favor. Gianni Agnelli from Fiat is seen wearing the watch on the outside of his shirt cuff in a magazine, and the rest is history. The watch becomes an entire, industry in and of itself. It's 70 to 75% of the sales of Audemars Piguet's annual revenue. You can't predict, but when you look at watches released today, think of it in terms of those Q criteria that I shared. The brand. Is it a good brand with a consistent history of producing excellence at the price level it offers watches? If yes, that's a great sign. The timelessness of that design. Do you think in 15 to 20 years, there's still going to be people who want to wear that? So we have to do that processing ourselves. Use your judgment in purchasing any new watch. It's very tough to predict what's going to be in style in the future, but if you follow your heart, you're experienced, you know that watch not only fits your wrist, but many different wrist types and sizes. That's a great indicator that that watch is going to stand the test of time. It's very difficult to make a watch fit a wide array of wrist sizes and types, and that's one element that really helps.
So following up on those questions, for the style option, was there a difference in the demographic in terms of, do you have any stats on that?
It was the most let's say, the most online participation for any Philips auction ever. The most number of bidders, the most number of online inquiries. So that concept definitely appealed to, I think, the younger crowd who is increasingly online. The press that it received, I think the concept was well received. We got some criticism, but like you always do. But we thought it was a good formula. And bridging to the world of fashion, men's style, I think was an important motivator for us, as we want, like I said, to get watches in front of as many new people as possible, because I personally want to preserve watch collecting as a future hobby. I love it, and I want people to enjoy it like I have. Sir?
Could you walk us through ways that Philips remains competitive or relevant in a competitive world?
Yes, I'm happy to. I see a competitor from another auction house in the audience, but we're a friendly industry. First, like the watchmaking brands that I recommend, we follow our own path. We don't copy. We do what we feel is right. When we started Philips, we had the unique opportunity to build something from the ground up from a clean sheet of paper. I quit my day job for that opportunity. I'm an engineer by training. I love to build things. And when the opportunity was presented to me, Paul helped me build it. I said, wonderful. It's going to be by collectors for collectors. And you're a collector, Paul. I want your perspective in helping me build this. So that's the start. And going forward, still, we have our values. Our values are scholarship, transparency, client service, doing our best to offer watches that we would ourselves be proud to buy and wear and enjoy. Offering assurance to clients when they buy that watch, they go to a collector's gathering, they can be proud to have that watch on their wrist and not have to apologize for something being wrong. That's really our values and what we stand for. And going forward, we're not going to stop. That's exactly our mission, to continue to do that. Obviously, looking for new channels, new clients in whatever way we can.
There's a second part. Could you just kind of discuss the health of the secondary market? There's speculation that obviously we're in the middle of a bubble. If we are in the middle of a bubble, when will there be a deleveraging? Just kind of touch upon that.
With pleasure. So on the comment about a bubble, personally, I don't think so at all. I think the growth has been healthy, especially when you compare it to other collectible genres like collector's cars. The growth in that world has been in line with the growth in the world of collector's watches. In any industry, in any field of collecting, there's cycles. And the US economy, the global economy, has been on a pretty good pace for the past 10 years. So we're not immune to macroeconomic forces. So if the economy is not doing well, the world of collectors, collecting collectible objects, also does a little bit less than normal. But as far as the overall health of the market, based on the demand I see, I think it's quite healthy. What we struggle with and what other dealers struggle with is finding property. There's so much demand out there and so little supply. And it is a supply and demand equation. And that drives price rises. Collectors are holding on. The world of collectible watches is quite young. It's only been around since the 1980s. A lot of the great watches have already come to the market, and they're held and possessed by collectors who love those watches and don't want to let go. To convince them to let go, it's difficult. And so we struggle to find the right properties in the condition we want, at the prices that we think are attractive to our future buyers. But for me, from my perspective, the health of the watch market is good. Maybe time for one more question. Yes, sir.
Will we ever know who bought Baldwin with Baldwin?
No. Sorry to say. It went to a good home. So thank you again, everyone. Oh, one more question. Polish. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a great question, Hyla. The thing is the watch collector community is tiny, and the people who care about whether it's polished or not are so few and far between. The big brands, they deal with everyone, and the majority of people want their watch to look like new when they take it to the manufacturer, and that's what they do. They'll make it look like new and they'll polish it. So when the watch nerds like us go to the manufacturer and say, can you please service my watch, it's up to us to say, do not polish, exclamation mark. So really the onus is on us. And anytime I meet a normal person, an auto watch person, and they show me their watch and they say, I need some help getting it serviced, here's what you do, and tell them do not polish it. Why? This is why. So we have to educate at the same time.
So other brands don't use the laser filling, so that's the alternative to polishing out. They also have galvanized ways of the same metal, so it's change the condition, but it's not.
It's not so bad, yeah. So the capable brands, and it depends on the metal used. When it's done by the factory and it's imperceptible and it looks and feels and smells like the original case, it's the original case. When it's done by the factory.
That's what I was thinking. So in your view, that would be essentially original.
But a transparent seller who owned that watch would be upfront because there's a service record. And the service record will state that it had been lasered. But it depends on the ultimate buyer. Does the buyer care about that? Yes, he won't buy it. Does he care about it? No. Will he pay a premium for it? Maybe, maybe not.
If you were suggesting to like 2 or 3 watches and you think will break down in the next several decades, is a long-term investment?
I would say past performance is indicative of future potential. I mean, this is my personal taste. I love Rolex Submariners. I think they're a great first watch to buy. Omega Speedmasters, great first watch to buy. Rolex Daytonas, great first watch to buy. Patek Nautilus, AP Royal Oak. Those watches have done well historically, and I think will continue to do well. Unknown watches that aren't so popular, I think vintage, time-only, well-sized watches by Omega, IWC, and Longines, I think are good places to put money. Yes, sir.
So when you say vintage Omegas, are you talking about the Seamaster DeMille, maybe from the 50s or 60s, or a little more dressy, obviously?
Possibly, yeah. If it's in exceptional condition, if it's sized right, you can't go wrong. So thank you all. Enjoy Watches and Wonders, and I appreciate you coming out.
Vintage Brighton.
Oh, beautiful watch.
1950.
Fantastic.
And so he kept it in a drawer. He wasn't a big watch guy. And then my mother-in-law found it, and it's been rebuilt, but nothing has been changed. It's all the original.
Yeah, it looks great.